Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Explore Felt Sense Training with BioDynamic Breathwork, embodied practices for breaking the cycle of trauma and releasing buried emotional energy. My name is Stephen Dyna. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm really thrilled today because breathwork was really foundational for me in my path of opening and spiritual growth and development. And we're getting to explore the deeper levels of that with a really remarkable pioneer. His name is Giten Tonkov. He's the founder of the Biodynamic Breathwork and Trauma Release System. And he's taught a number of times for Shift and always has some fascinating insights and practices for us. So that said, Giten, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here again with you, Stephen.
Great. Also excited that we're going to get to have a brand new program with you. It's called the Felt Sense Training with Biodynamic Breathwork, and we're going to share more about that later in the hour. So more to come with Giten if you get sparked by today. So Giten, I'd love for you to start us off today with a little bit first about your journey with breathwork and why it became such a central thing that you put your life focus on.
I started to practice breath work in 94, so that's 30 years ago. And one of my first experiences with breath work was nothing short of profound because I had this opportunity to go deep into the connected breathing where everything else just disappeared. And as I was going deeper into the breath, emotions just started to flood me. So crying, sobbing, weeping, that was just like somebody pulled out a cork of a long overdue champagne that needed to spill out. And after that, I just knew that this is something that I want to work with. I was already a massage therapist, and I was practicing in New York City. I was a licensed massage therapist, and that was one of the most incredible, profound experiences that actually started me on developing breath work and my own modality, which is biodynamic breathwork. So that was like the first experience with breathwork opened something for me that it's indescribable of how much that was meaningful in so many levels.
Well, I've certainly experienced that myself as well in terms of the uncorking of the champagne bottle. It's a great metaphor. So maybe share a little bit before we get into the specifics of your modality. What is it about the breath that really allows that sort of uncorking of past emotions and traumas and really surfacing things that have been long buried?
Well, breath and emotions are very closely connected. And breath and traumatic events that we're holding in our physical body are also very closely connected. So when we begin to deeply, fully breathe, we begin to bring up to the surface emotional material that's been stuck in the body for years on end, going all the way back to developmental trauma. So breath is that tool that is necessary to start to create that softness, to open up whatever's been pent up in the body, whatever's been that arrested energy that's been stuck in the physical body. When we bring in the deeper, fuller breath, everything starts to soften up, and things that been at the bottom, things that been repressed, contracted, start to all of a sudden show up to the surface. So we have something to work with. We actually clearing ourselves with breath. And when we are going through a traumatic event, the first thing that we do is we cut off our breath because we want to control the how much feelings, how much emotions and sensations are there. So when we begin to cut off our breath, we actually control our emotions. That's how that works.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's like when you're sort of de-repressing all this emotion. So maybe share a little bit about how do you do that in a way that allows us to really work through and integrate the things that do get uncorked.
Well, when the emotions start to come up to the surface, and emotions is one of the elements of biodynamic breathwork, which we'll talk a little bit later, we process these emotions through movements. We allow ourselves to actually develop emotional intelligence. So we are not stuck in the emotional charge anymore, but actually feeling how these emotions can flow and we can be fully present to them. That's actually the power of the felt sense, which is the focus of this course, which we will be exploring. By shifting our attention from emotional charge, from being stuck in the emotional activation to how these emotions are expressing themselves, how they manifest in terms of the felt sensations in the body, gives us possibility to move through them without feeling overwhelmed.
Makes a lot of sense. So yeah, maybe now would be a good time to map out exactly what are the elements of biodynamic breath work and what makes it distinct from other methodologies.
Sure. The first one is breath. So we talked a little bit about it already. Breath gives us a possibility to elevate the charge in our physical body. It gives us possibility to regulate the activation also that we are experiencing. We can increase the breath, breathe deeper, fuller, or we can slow down the breath to bring ourselves into parasympathetic activation. The second element is movement. Within itself, breath contains movement. When we're fully deeply breathing, there is already movement happening in the body. So we take that movement that's already happening in the body and support our clients and ourselves to manifest it outwardly. So the movement of the diaphragm, the movement of the auxiliary musculature, all of this movement that happens in the core starts to manifest. And a lot of the times it manifests through the movement of the spine. We call that unwinding. So that's a big part of biodynamic breath work. The third element is touch. The touch is used to support the flow of the energy that's been released in the body, that arrested energy that's lives in that physical charge, in the physical tension that we're holding, starts to flow. And with our body work in the online environment, it's a self body work. And when we work in person, that's hands on body work technique that supports that softening, creating that rather unlocking that channel so the energy can move. The next element is sound. Our voice is most important element to express. Yeah, so we use our voice to create this vibration within our physical body, as well as opening up our throat, which is our main expression center. The next element we're working with is a result of the previous four elements. If we work with breath, movement, touch, and sound, that creates the flow of emotions. Yeah, it's kind of a recipe for opening. And we already talked about emotions when that physical charge that we hold in the body starts to open up and move. Emotions is actually one of the first things that come up to the surface. And the last element is meditation. Yeah, so we use meditation as a valuable tool to bring our attention to our physical body, to just observe of what's happening, how we're responding to the processes that happening in our physical body. So meditation gives us an opportunity to stay present without bringing any meaning to it. And actually working with felt sense is kind of a meditation because we need to observe the felt sensations that are coming up to the surface in our physical body without attaching any meaning to them. And that is that powerful tool that actually is why we're doing all of that work. So we can be present with ourselves. So meditation can naturally happen.
Beautiful. Can you share a little bit more about felt sense and how that's differentiated when you sort of truly feel sensation versus just, have sensation?
Yes. The language of felt sense is actually one of the things that people are not aware of in our society, pretty much. We are greatly disconnected from our physical body. We give meaning to everything we feel and experience. Working with felt sense, which is also, in other words, working with our interoception, sensing what is happening on the interior of our body in terms of felt sensations without attaching any meaning to them, gives us a possibility to not get stuck in any state. So interoception is something that you can sense on the inside. So, for example, you can sense your breath moving. You can sense your digestion moving through your physical body. You can sense your position in space, the need for eating or drinking or eliminating. So all of that is part of interoception. That's part of our felt sense. Feelings and emotions are also part of our interoception because we feel them on the inside of our physical body. They manifest in various ways, but the key here is to actually be present to these physical sensations and naming them. Yeah? Just to feel is not enough. When you feel and name it, for that we need to know the specific languaging to name these sensations. We are moving very quickly through various states without feeling stuck in them. So we are actually can come out from any state in a very short period of time. That's interoception, that's felt sense. And it's a very, very powerful tool, especially in working with trauma.
What is it about the sort of the naming and being really precise and understanding the sensations that really helps to move more of that emotional energy?
Well, when we are not speaking in concepts, we are very actual to what's happening with our physical body. We're actual in what's going on in terms of felt sensations. If, for example, you feel, if I can ask you, how do you feel right now? You can say, I feel angry. And how does anger feel? The next step would be for you to describe the anger feels in my body, for example, as I'm tightening my jaw, I'm squeezing my fist, it's shortness of breath, and then you will go deeper and deeper into these naming these felt sensations. If you just name one and stay there, you'll soon realize that no state is permanent, that one sensation leads behind it the next one and the next one. So by definition, felt sense is a moving target. When we keep the focus on our felt sense, we are not stuck in anything. So we are breaking that charge. We're breaking that vicious circle of felt sensations producing emotions, emotion producing more felt sensations, and we can spin around like this forever. But the moment we shift our attention away from the activation into the felt sensations with the presence of pendulation and titration, meaning feeling just enough so it's not overwhelming, we are not stuck in any state. Yeah, so we are moving deeper and deeper and deeper, and that's when the opening is actually happening.
I want to go a little further into this sense of titration, since I think that's one of the evolutions of breath work that's been really important, is like really being able to modulate how much comes up. Share a little bit more about why that's important from a trauma perspective and how a little bit more about the internal experience of that.
Yes, when we are working with breath, there's a possibility of a lot of expression coming up to the surface all at once. And I've seen this happen numerous times over the years. Titration is a tool that gives us possibility to feel according to how much our body can handle, how much our nervous system can handle without feeling overwhelmed. So meaning that we're feeling little by little in small chunks. We feel our activation, we feel our felt sensations, and we pendulate back to the resource. We spend a little bit of time in resource to allow our nervous system to come into a parasympathetic state. And then from there, again, we begin to activate. This way, we are giving our nervous system possibility to regain its resiliency. So nervous system gets that exercise. With each time we pendulate, we are able to stay with activation a little bit longer. And of course, each person has various window of tolerance. For somebody, they can stay for a very short time with activation. Somebody has more resilient nervous system. They can stay for longer period of time with activation. But nevertheless, Titration gives us possibility to stay present and embodied to our process. And that is what makes biodynamic breathwork different from other breathwork modalities. The focus is on embodiment. It's not on accessing alternate states of consciousness, which happens just by as a byproduct of it anyway. But going into the body and staying present to your felt sensation, to your experience for as long as possible. And that ability to stay present to the felt sensation, of course, expands over time.
It makes a lot of sense. How does this then affect the sort of the physical armoring that we might have in our body?
So the way that biodynamic breathwork approaches that is that we work with what's called the 7 belts of tension. So our physical armoring, according to Wilhelm Reich, the father of body-oriented psychotherapy, is distributed in these 7 belts of tension. And this physical armoring goes back into our developmental trauma, developmental disruption. This is something we took on to feel safe in the world. So when we work with biodynamic breath work and pendulation and titration, we soften that physical armoring. With the 6 elements of biodynamic breathwork that I described earlier, the physical armoring that actually holds that charge. Armoring by definition is something that is there to protect. So when we are softening that layer of protection, that material, that trauma that is held in the tissues, in the nervous system, in the muscular contraction, in the fascia, it starts to move. There's a possibility for that arrested energy to become more available to us.
That makes a lot of sense. I really think you've got such a sophisticated perspective on all this. So I want to spend some time now. We're really giving people a taste of what it looks like, and then we can talk again some more. So why don't you guide us into practice now?
Sure, absolutely. So I want to invite you to take a deep, full breath, sit with your back straight, and close your eyes. Now, as you close your eyes, bring your attention to your breath. The breath is that easiest tool to start to connect with your interoception, because you can feel how the breath is moving through your physical body. Which part of your body moves with the breath? Is it your chest that's rising and falling? Maybe it's moving a little lower in your rib cage, or maybe it comes down into your diaphragm, and your belly moves with the breath. So just be aware for the next 2 to 3 consecutive breaths of what is that movement that happens in your physical body. And now, as your attention is on the breath, be aware of what is that felt sensation that accompanies your breathing. Maybe in some ways you can find that maybe you're holding tension in some place of your body. Some other area is more open, so there's more space. Now notice as your breath comes in and it travels through, where there is space, where does it naturally flow? And fill that space with your breath. We are now beginning to follow that interoception. Now you can also try to sense your temperature. It is also part of your interoception. You can sense your temperature of your physical body, whether you're hot or cold, or maybe you're more neutral, comfortable state. Sense your position in space. Notice how, as you're breathing, these things also begin to shift. Is your breath impacting your temperature somehow? Maybe your body wants to shift somehow. What is that inner movement that comes together with the breath? The movement of your diaphragm, expansion and contraction of your lungs. Taking a few more deep, full breaths this way. And now we will bring the element of touch to our physical body. Putting your hand on your chest. And bring your attention to that felt sensation of the temperature of your own hand, as well as the pressure that comes from it. And now see if you can sense it a layer deeper. And now name that physical sensation. Be very actual. That what is that physical sensation that accompanies your own touch? And if you're breathing right into that place where your hand is touching your chest, notice what shifts with the breath in terms of the felt sensations if you pair it with touch. Now, taking another deep, full breath and see if your body wants to spontaneously do any of the movement that wants to come up. If you give your body right now a full freedom without trying to hold it, your body will naturally do some sort of movement. It may want to stretch, or it may want to shake a little bit, or maybe sway side to side. Just be aware of this specific movement that arises and how that movement is felt for you, where that movement flows and where it maybe gets interrupted in your physical body. So all of these are felt sensations. And the moment you identify these felt sensations, you are creating space for more to arise. Now, take another deep, full breath and see if this breath flows into another place in the body which was closed before. And see again that movement that comes with the breath. How does that feel for you? Again, find that specific word that represents that physical sensation that arises. And say that word out loud so you can hear yourself. So it's not just some concept in your mind somewhere, but you actually can hear yourself say it. And now notice what happens when you hear yourself say this very specific word that describes the physical sensation that arises with breath and awareness to where it flows. Taking another deep, full breath and opening your eyes. And now let your eyes scan your physical environment. Look around. We call that reorienting. That starts to engage the ventral branch of our vagus nerve. So we can actually start to engage socially. Yeah, so moving your eyes, taking in the shapes, the colors. And now let's shift our attention back. Now notice your position in space again. And be aware how you come back.
Great. Well, thank you for that practice, Giten. And I feel like that just like doing it sort of really step by step like that, allowing to see the changes and feel the changes, it's so helpful to really build a practice of embodied release and opening. So I wonder if you can share a little bit about how to keep the momentum with that moving forward.
So this is a practice that you can do anytime. Wherever you are, you can just slow down, stop for a moment, and begin to shift your attention into your interior. Imagine that your body is a shell where inside of that shell, there are things happening and things that can be felt through your felt sensations. So your breath is that doorway into your felt sensations. Breathing supports you to be more sensitive to actually feel at what's happening on the inside of your physical body. So you can bring that into your daily practice. You can stop a few times a day for even under a minute and bring your focus into the physical body. And there's actually a new research has been done recently. I listened to a podcast with Andrew Huberman, and he was talking about this new research that actually supports people with ADHD to keep focus. And all it takes is 17 minutes per day to just sit and observe your felt sensations, your interoception. So if you keep your focus for as long as possible on observing your physical body, what it's happening in your physical body, this greatly, greatly improves focus for ADHD. And anyone can benefit from it as well. So this is actually what we're going to be exploring in our course, is that developing that ability to identify felt sensations through the means of the 6 elements of biodynamic breath work, and going deeper into learning how to track these felt sensations, how to develop the languaging around these felt sensations as well.
Can you share a little bit more about how you'd apply the understanding of felt sensations and your system breathwork to like bigger traumas, things that might be more difficult to come to terms with, and so how you're kind of really approaching that in a very digestible way?
Mm-hmm. So again, it brings us back to titration. So we feel the felt sensation and we stay with it until it reaches that kind of the end of that window of tolerance. Because when we work with traumas, we don't want to stay in the middle of that window of tolerance. We want to bring ourselves towards the edges periodically so we can be with activation. So when we are going deeper into sensing our physical body with, of course, the help of breath and movement, this gives us possibility to expand our window of tolerance, retrain our system, our nervous system, to be with that activation. And breath is by far one of the best tools that I know.
Beautiful. Well, let's go a little bit further. And how does you see this work unfolding with give a specific client story or somebody that like how you can kind of work with the breath over time in this very systematic way to release things and open to new possibilities.
Sure. When we work with people in biodynamic breath work, working with the felt sense, with the tools of biodynamic breath work, we actually melt that protection. And over time, that protection that developed because of the developmental trauma as well as the shock trauma. So over time, people develop greater capacity to be with activation. And felt sense by far is that very important tool that actually indicates of how much a person can go into the activation in the very specific session. So when we bring up the charge with the breath, because conscious connected breathing is the main tool that we use. So when we use conscious connected breathing, we are bringing the charge up in the body. Breath, our body converts breath into energy. And when that energy starts to build in the body, it wants to move. So we are observing of how that energy wants to move, where it wants to take us, what kind of physical movement wants to manifest. So we build the charge and disperse. We don't just build it and throw it out in catharsis. That's kind of an old school way of working with emotional release. So you throw out in catharsis, you scream, but we try to avoid that. We bring up the charge with the tool of breath, with being aware of the physical sensations in the body, and then we disperse that charge through movement. And by following our felt sensations, this gives us a possibility to notice how this charge wants to disperse. As this charge starts to disperse, where does it encounter a physical block? So we go to that next state, the next stage of the breath session, that we continue to breathe, continue to open up these physical blocks. So by the end of the session, the idea is that we generate enough charge and create enough relaxation and opening in the body so that charge can disperse evenly throughout the whole body. So instead of generating the charge and throwing it out, we are keeping that energy and we are unlocking the charge that's been trapped in the physical tension that's trauma related from the past.
So it seems like you're
Yeah.
implying that like the cathartic method actually sort of dissipates or you lose energy, whereas this sort of like cultivates and rebuilds your energy system.
Yeah. Of course, we support also external expression, but that external expression needs to be connected, meaning that if you're going into a lot of emotional expression, catharsis, most of the time people lose connection to themselves.
Hmm.
The emotion takes over and everything else disappears. And so many times when I'm teaching in classes, I'm asking, raise your hand if you've been in a situation where you feel emotional and you lose yourself completely. Almost everyone raises their hand. And this is kind of a usual thing that people go through. So when we are raising the charge just enough and we're dispersing that charge, we are actually keeping that energy. Of course, some of it spills out in the emotion. We want to feel emotional. We want to express the emotion. But the key is to be present to how this emotion is manifested through the physical sensations. Yeah, we convert that emotional charge into what we feel physically. And therefore, we moving through layers and layers of emotional charge very quickly. No more than 90 seconds, you can feel that emotion and it has this lifespan and then it moves through and something else can open up. It's not just one session that we stuck in one emotion. There could be a whole rainbow, a whole spectrum of emotional states.
Hmm. That makes so much sense. So, I'd love to you share a little bit more about the deeper reaches of this practice. How does it evolve over time as you really go deeper with it?
When you go deeper with this practice, you develop the capacity, first of all, to be with the bigger charge for longer periods of time. So your nervous system gets that workout and you're able to start to move through these states quite quickly. So each session it will go through many different layers that you can access in your physical body, starting from the first superficial, that superficial armoring that we created, going deeper and deeper and deeper, reaching that armoring that lives at the core of the body. Yeah, that's mostly related to earlier trauma. So when we are going step by step through opening up these seven belts of tension, it's kind of, if you imagine a spring that's coming out of the ground, and there's a pile of stones on that spring that's blocking the water from sprouting out. So working with these seven belts of tension, we work from the top down. It's like removing the stones from the top, lower and lower and lower, opening up that access to energy that wants to move up from the first chakra, from the pelvic belt of tension, as we call, which is connected to our sexuality, to our creativity, to connection to the earth. And we're creating that space for that energy to arise higher and higher, and to move into the solar plexus, to move into the heart, to move into the throat, into the third eye. So we are actually, instead of throwing it out, we're containing, we're dispersing, we're letting ourselves to be with that charge so we can use that energy later. It becomes available to us, something that was locked up or for some people non-existent simply because of the trauma or the inability to sense their physical body. We're numb because we're traumatized, pretty much. So when we become more sensitive by releasing armoring, we get access to more energy.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Well, I really appreciate what you're sharing, and it's clear there's so much nuance and depth of practice behind it. So, I want to spend some time talking about your upcoming program, since I think it's a really unique way for people around the world to get access to the deep understanding that you have and how to really use breath work in a very specific way to release buried emotional energy and traumas. So the program that Giten is going to be teaching is called Felt Sense Training with BioDynamic Breathwork, the embodied practice of identifying and gently releasing buried emotional energy caused by trauma. You can find it at the URL feltsensetraining.com, feltsensetraining.com. This is a 7-week program. It is open to anyone. You don't have to have any specific background. It's really just if you're, whether you're a practitioner or you're just interested in doing deeper healing work yourself, it really meets you where you're at. So, Giten, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your high-level intentions for the program and what people will come away with, and then I'll read out the module titles, give a sense for where the specific curriculum en route.
So this program, as you said, Stephen, is a training. So we will be learning tools necessary for, first of all, experience and recognize our felt sensations, being able to track them, learning the languaging about it, but also this will give you a tool to bring it into the work with people if you already work with people in any respect. If you're a yoga teacher, a dance teacher, a therapist, this is an extremely valuable tool because it gives us possibility to keep our clients in the present moment. So we will be learning the tools of how to keep your clients in the present moment through the felt sensations and actually guide them into deeper layers to access emotional charge that lives in their physical body.
Beautiful. Well, let's then dive into the actual specific teachings that you're going to be going through. So, module one is called Identify and Connect with Subtle Body Sensations to Neutralize Emotional Reactivity and Empower Self-Healing.
Yeah, in this module, it's kind of the foundational module. So we will have an experience of guided session where you will be going into your own exploration of felt sensations with the tools of biodynamic breathwork.
And module two goes into enhanced trauma release by integrating biodynamic breathwork and trauma release system elements with felt sense.
In module two, we will go deeper into exploring the nuances of the felt sensations as we're going through each of the elements of the session, of the biodynamic breathwork during the session. So I will be naming certain things as we go deeper into exploration. In the first module, this is going to be kind of a general session where you're able to just begin to experience these tools. After going through that, in the second module, you will start to identify what they are as we're going through it.
Module three, interoception and exteroception techniques to expand your felt sense vocabulary beyond logical and emotional interpretation.
In this module, we'll be talking about the vocabulary to name the interoception. So there are various ways of sense your physical body. There are different types of sensation. There's expansion sensations, there's contraction sensation, there's temperature sensations, and each one of them has a very specific vocabulary that's attached to it. So in this module, you will begin to learn the theory of interoception, exteroception, as well as vocabulary that we use to name the sensations. Learning this vocabulary around the body is really like learning a new language. For many people that spend time disconnected from their physical body, living outside of themselves, this is a very valuable tool. So you can teach them this specific words so they can connect deeper with their physical bodies.
Great. Module four then goes into verbalize felt sensations with non-judgmental language to work through trauma with greater precision.
In this module, we will learn how to track felt sensations. So we will identify felt sensations. Of course, we will be using the 6 elements of biodynamic breathwork. Name the sensation, stay with it, and notice how it changes. And actually going deeper into it by noticing what other felt sensations arise. It's one sensation leads another one behind. It's a kind of a never-ending procession, the train of these sensations that keeps us present in our physical body.
Module 5, unwind your spine to facilitate trauma release through myofascial tissue.
So one of the main tools that we're working with, I named it, is movement. It's the second element of biodynamic breathwork. And spinal unwinding gives us possibility to begin to release deeper core layers of tension. So when we're using breath to bring up the charge and we are actually focusing on the felt sensations that live deeper in our core, this gives us possibility to sense our energy and how these felt sensations support us to unwind from the inside out. I always like to give that example of invertebrates moving. If you've seen them on video or maybe live in the jellyfish in the sea or an octopus, the movement comes from the core and then spreads to the periphery. That's how they propel themselves through the water. This is a type of movement that we will be exploring, that soft spinal movement that originates at the core and then the energy moving out to the periphery. Pair this with the felt sense, it creates so much opening in the body. And this is a valuable tool. If you're already working with people, you can bring that into your work, and that will create a huge difference in your client's progress.
Module 6, segmental body awareness through the 7 belts of tension to track sensations and release tension patterns.
In this class, we will go through these 7 belts of tension. I will talk about them and name each one, and then we will focus on each one through guided process to see what we're holding in each of the 7 belts of tension, starting from the top of the body and finishing with the lower body.
And finally, Module 7, uncover the relationship between breath and felt sense and trauma release for an integrated approach to somatic healing and therapy.
In this module, we're bringing everything that we learned together. We've gone through the body in all the previous 6 modules. This module gives us possibility to kind of reevaluate how our body has responded from first module until the last module, what has opened up in terms of the felt sensations, how much more sensitive we become, how much more able to sense our felt sensations, how much more able to name them and track them. So this is an opportunity for you to kind of bring everything that we've learned into one module.
Well, thank you for laying out such a holistic and really integrated pathway for people to really take this work and apply it in their lives or client lives as well. So again, there's more detail on these modules at feltsensetraining.com. I also want to draw your attention to some other really great aspects of this program. So in addition to the 7 90-minute live sessions with Giten, you're going to have time to do interactive exercises, ask questions directly. You also get recordings, both video and audio of every session, as well as word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There are weekly exercises for home. There's a Facebook community to support you and deepen your experience, as well as small group time to connect with other participants. And on the page, you'll see a number of extra bonuses that have been carefully designed to really add value to your journey. There's a video breathwork session with Giten for deeper presence and comfort. It's called Cultivating Safety During a Breathwork Session. You want to share a little bit more about that, Giten?
Yes, this is a session where I am giving a demo where there's a client and I'm giving a full session demo with hands-on talking through actually what's happening in that session, how the client responds to touch, to breath, and to all of the 6 elements of biodynamic breathwork.
Great. There's also an audio conversation with Giten and Jessica Dibb, who spearheaded our breathwork summits. It's called Releasing Trauma Through Body Awareness and Breathwork Practice. Anything you want to share about that conversation with Jessica?
Yes, it was a very beautiful opportunity for Jessica and I share our understanding of the breath work and how it supports trauma release.
And in addition to those two bonuses, there's one special bonus that folks get when you sign up by midnight tonight. And this really is a way to encourage you to make a decision now and take the time to go through the whole page at Felt Sense Training and really get your own felt sense about if this is the right next step for you. And if you do move forward today, you're going to get a special video by Giten to apply the 6 elements of biodynamic breathwork. It's called Ocular Belt Session Demo to release tension. Very intriguing. Want to share a little bit more about the ocular belt session demo to release tension?
Yes, this is a session demo as I'm working with the client. Also, the focus is on working around the eyes, forehead, and the top and the back of the head. This is the topmost belt of tension that we work with. So I'm guiding a client to go through the opening of this belt of tension. And as you watch that demo, you can also follow as I'm guiding the client and see what happens with you. It's a very beautiful session demo.
Really great extra reason to sign up today to get the ocular belt session demo to release tension. And I imagine that all the kinds of downstream benefits from that. So we've kept the investment for this program very accessible. It's just 3 payments of $128, so you can save 10% if you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start November 7th and run Thursdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. But even if you can't make the live sessions, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. And I also just encourage you to read through some of the testimonials on the page at feltsensetraining.com. There's a lot of great testimonials from people who have benefited from Giten's work, from previous courses at Shift. So you're really in good hands and really working with one of the premier experts in the world on this cutting edge approach to breathwork and trauma release. So again, it's all in detail at feltsensetraining.com, and you get that special bonus when you sign up by midnight tonight, which is all about the ocular belt session demo to release tension. So, Giten, we're nearing the end of our time. Anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering joining this training with you?
From the bottom of my heart, I'm inviting you to this experience. If you are planning to just take this work for yourself, it will expand your ability to be present with your body without attaching meaning to it, moving through anything that comes up. And for those of you who are working with people already, it will give you a huge opportunity to bring these tools into working with people. It's a really wonderful course, and one of my favorite to teach.
Great. Well, I know people are going to be so blessed if they choose to join you. So again, all the details are at feltsensetraining.com, and you get the special mini workshop on ocular belt tension release when you sign up by midnight tonight. So Giten, thank you so much, and thank you all for joining. Many
Thank you,
blessings.
Stephen.